Corto verduras, cocino sopas y preparo sándwiches. Reviso el menú y preparo la comida del día.
First, you'll hear the audio with English subtitles, and then again, this time with Spanish subtitles. After that, I'll break down each sentence, focusing on grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Next, you'll hear the audio without any subtitles. And finally, there'll be a quiz to test what you've learned. Welcome to Spanish Mastery with Steve. Let's begin.
Me llamo Juan. Soy chef en una pequeña cafetería. Empiezo a trabajar temprano por la mañana. Corto verduras, cocino sopas y preparo sándwiches. Reviso el menú y preparo la comida del día. La cocina es calurosa, pero disfruto mi trabajo. Me gusta ver a la gente sonreír cuando come mi comida.
And now with Spanish subtitles.
Me llamo Juan. Soy chef en una pequeña cafetería. Empiezo a trabajar temprano por la mañana. Corto verduras, cocino sopas y preparo sándwiches. Reviso el menú y preparo la comida del día. La cocina es calurosa, pero disfruto mi trabajo. Me gusta ver a la gente sonreír cuando come mi comida.
Firstly, we have soy chef. I'm a chef. In English, we have to use an article before we talk about our job. I'm a teacher. I'm a lawyer. However, in everyday Spanish, this is not necessary. It is possible in some circumstances, but if you're talking about your job in general terms, you will just say soy and then the profession. Also notice how the adjective pequeña, which means small, is in the feminine form, and that's because cafetería is a feminine noun.
Soy chef en una pequeña cafetería.
Empiezo means I start. It can also be pronounced empiezo because in Spanish, depending on the accent, the Z can be pronounced S or TH sound in English, th. This is what's called a stem changing verb, and it's on screen now. If you look up the verb empezar in a dictionary, you'll see it's spelt P-E-Z. However, the stem changes when it's conjugated, and you can see on screen now you have yo empiezo, I start. Tú empiezas, you start. It doesn't change, however, in the nosotros and the vosotros form. You can look up stem changing verbs online and find out about all the common ones. Also, when you use empezar followed by a verb, like in the example, empiezo a trabajar, I start to work, you must have a between empiezo and then the infinitive. We also have a great example of how to say in the morning in Spanish, por la mañana.
Empiezo a trabajar temprano por la mañana.
Here we have examples of the verb cortar, to cut with corto, I cut, cocinar, to cook, cocino, I cook, and preparo, from preparar, to prepare.
Corto verduras, cocino sopas y preparo sándwiches.
In this sentence, I want to draw your attention to the last part, la comida del día, the food for the day. Now this del día, in Spanish when you have the preposition de, which usually means of, and then you have the article el, they join together, so it becomes del, and that means literally of the. The feminine article la, this does not happen. So if it was of the food, you would say de la comida. That doesn't join up together.
Reviso el menú y preparo la comida del día.
In this example, we have the adjective calurosa, which means hot or warm for a room. And notice how it's calurosa, so it's in the feminine form with an a at the end. And this is to agree with the feminine noun, la cocina, the kitchen. And we also have the verb disfrutar in the first person, disfruto, I enjoy.
La cocina es calurosa, pero disfruto mi trabajo.
There are a few things to unpack in this sentence. So firstly, la gente. La gente means the people. In Spanish, la gente is singular. So if you were to say the people are, you would actually say the people is. La gente is. Whereas in English, people is plural. The people are. And that's why sometimes Spanish speakers will make that mistake when they speak English. The people is. And you can see later on in the sentence the verb come, which means to eat, from comer. So it's la gente come. the people eat, and the verb comer is in the third person singular. Next, let's look at the start of the sentence. Me gusta ver a la gente, which literally means I like to see the people, but you will notice that there is an a in there, which is often translated as to into English. So this a is an example of the personal a, and there are some notes on screen now that you might want to pause and read, but basically you use a before a specific person or person who receives the action, so the object. So that's why you say, me gusta ver a la gente. I like to see people. The people are the object which are being seen by you.
Me gusta ver a la gente sonreír cuando come mi comida.
Now I'm going to play the audio without any subtitles, and you can see if you can pick out any of those points we just covered in that last part of the video.
Me llamo Juan. Soy chef en una pequeña cafetería. Empiezo a trabajar temprano por la mañana. Corto verduras, cocino sopas y preparo sándwiches. Reviso el menú y preparo la comida del día. La cocina es calurosa, pero disfruto mi trabajo. Me gusta ver a la gente sonreír cuando come mi comida.
By the way, if you're moving into intermediate Spanish, I have a reading series available on Amazon called Spanish Intermediate Reading Comprehension. It has interesting articles on a wide variety of topics with grammar and vocabulary broken down and explained. It's linked in the description if you're interested. Now let's test what you've learned in this video with a quiz.
Soy chef en una pequeña cafetería. Empiezo a trabajar temprano por la mañana. Corto verduras, cocino sopas y preparo sándwiches. Reviso el menú y preparo la comida del día. La cocina es calurosa, pero disfruto mi trabajo. Me gusta ver a la gente sonreír cuando come mi comida.
If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, please give it a like. That really does help the algorithm. This was Spanish Mastery with Steve, and thanks for watching.